Hello, everybody. This is Clara Skyley, excited to present to you another amazing entrepreneur on the Beyond Influence series. And today we welcome my good friend, Therese Nicklas. So Terry, I've known for years. I mean, she's somebody who's really passionate about helping women achieve financial freedom. She has a very interesting story, which we'll share today. But let me read her background to you so you learn more about her. Therese Nicklas, certified financial planner and certified money coach, empowers women with smart money strategies so they enjoy life with more certainty, clarity, and confidence. She's the president and founder of the Wealth Coach for Women Incorporated and the author of the Money and Life Playbook, 5 simple steps to get control of your money, which you actually are going to have access today. And she's featured on national media platforms. And finally, her motto is live your life by design and not by default. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Cloris. I'm so excited to be here. This is an awesome project.
Well, it's just great to have you here because I know how passionate you are and how needed your guidance is. But I'd like to go back into that story that I mentioned, right? What inspired you to do what you do, to start this business?
Well, growing up as a child, my grandmother was a huge influence on me regarding finances. I grew up in a household where my parents fought all the time over money. And it wasn't that they didn't have money, it was just always a bone of contention and a source of stress. Where my grandmother, even though she had a lot less than they did, she just had such a different mindset around her money. And she never had any qualms or concerns that she would have. I saw that and I could see this definite difference. And I've always been somebody who loves people and I love to study people. So I saw a pattern. And then fast forward, when I started into this business, a very close friend of mine lost her husband. And I noticed where, even though she was the breadwinner, she felt that managing the money was the man's job. And now that the man wasn't around, she didn't know what to do. It took us almost a year to sort through everything, and her finances, unfortunately, were a mess. And that was because she had no control, not so much no control, but just not paying attention. And more women like her were coming to me, and I realized this is a real problem, and there's a lot of women that need support. So that is what inspired me to not only go into this field, but when I did, to specialize in helping women so that I can give them that certainty, clarity, and confidence that no matter what life throws at them, they're going to be able to maintain the lifestyle and enjoy their future.
Yeah, I love that. Certainty, clarity, confidence. That's what we need to really have the mindset for wealth and for a sustainable life and business. So now you mentioned that women who are going through a transition, who have lost maybe a partner, a relationship, tend to have trouble, right? And have,
Yes.
Trouble with their finances. So when they come to you, do they come knowing what their problem is, or they just say, okay, I don't have enough money, help me? Like what kind of awareness do they have of their problem?
Many times they have very little awareness. They know there's a disconnect and they know there's a gap and they don't know how to put the puzzle back together. And most of that is caused because they're going through a trauma. And whenever you have a trauma to the brain, whether it's a physical or emotional one, the ability to make sound decisions actually shuts off. There's been many studies around that. So because they're not able to make the decisions they need to make, they get overwhelmed, confused, and they're terrified. So when they come to me, the first thing that I do is just kind of, bring them back down to earth and sort through things and just walk very patiently and gently through the maze. And I really believe that by giving them a safe space where they feel like they can ask whatever question they need to ask and not feel judged, I think that helps build their confidence And because now they're feeling a little better about things, when I explain something, it becomes clear to them. And it's clarity is the first step to financial freedom. When you're in that confused mindset, you can't get out of your own way. And when you can't get out of your own way, you're not doing the things that you need to do to help yourself.
Yeah, beautifully said. Is about becoming aware of it and feeling safe to take action.
Right.
So would you say that people start to make changes in their life? Is this something that requires huge changes to really set yourself on the path to financial freedom, or can little steps make a difference in your ability to succeed?
Absolutely little steps, just like anything else. Inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, it feels hard. So you take little steps, and the number one step you have to take is to make a decision. The hardest part of financial planning is getting started. And a lot of that is because there's so much fear and feeling like, why bother? I'm so far behind. And until you get that clarity and know exactly where you are and where you need to be to get where you want to be,
Right.
you're only going to stay confused. And a confused mind says no and does nothing.
So true. Now, would you say that now that we're experiencing the current crisis with COVID-19, that has put an additional stress on women particularly?
Mhm. Absolutely. Now, not only are they juggling, what we call work-life balance, which, as we all know, doesn't really exist. That's a myth. But not only juggling that, but if they have young children, they're juggling trying to be like that homeschool teacher, make sure the kids are doing what they need to do. You're trying to work from home. In many cases, people's homes weren't set up to have a home office, and now like they're using the dining room table, and every room is like, every day they're juggling which room they're going to be in, and it just adds to the strain and the stress. So right now we are in very, very unusual circumstances. And I think for a lot of people, what's happening, because they're home more and they're noticing things more, they're realizing that they need help. But the challenge is, especially for anybody whose income has changed negatively, they're terrified to spend the money to get the help. And that's a real challenge. So sometimes there may be free resources or resources that don't really cost a whole lot of money that can make a huge difference, just relieving that stress and giving you that clarity so you can sleep at night and live your life and not have all this fear and worry.
Yeah, it's true. These are tough times. So, what is one thing people can do to get started? I know that you said to make the decision for sure,
Mhm.
and become aware of your situation, become aware that there's a solution. So, what is one thing people can do to get on that path to financial freedom?
Well, I think number one, making that decision that you are going to take action, that you're not where you want to be. Just admit that you're not where you want to be and understand that there are steps that can get you further down the path. One step that you can take is just really looking at your cash flow, what I call the cash flow calculator. So even if you use a pen and, just a yellow pad or an Excel spreadsheet, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, and just be very honest about what you're spending and what is your income. So I like to look at net income, which is not your gross pay for anybody that's like a W-2 employee, meaning you're not self-employed, you're on somebody's payroll, and like, what do you actually take home and what goes out the door, and what is the difference between the two? If the difference is negative, meaning you're spending more than you're making, you need to make some adjustments. If you're finding that you're spending less, now let's make some smart choices with what we're going to do with the surplus.
Would you say
And I
right
think
now?
that's the first very basic step. Oh, go ahead.
Go on, Terry. That's the first step, correct?
That's the first step.
Well, I was just thinking if somebody has, a negative cash flow, that definitely, cutting expenses would be important. But if it's positive, then you have to start thinking about, okay, how am I using this money in the best way possible?
Hmm.
So would you say that there's a solution, kind of a general solution for everyone, or does it depend on who you are, your priorities, your personality? Like, how do we decide what to invest in?
That's awesome. That's a great question, Cloris. I wouldn't say it's so much personality driven, but it's definitely priority driven. So depending on where you are right now, like, so let's just say you're 35 years old. You're kind of in the sort of in the beginning of your career. Maybe you have an advanced degree, and you're really just getting your feet wet, but you're in a pretty good place. Look at your debt. Look at college debt. Look at, what is your lifestyle, your car, and where you're living and all of that. And if you have surplus money, one of the best things you can do for yourself is accelerate your debt payments. Because when you get out from under debt, especially what I call one-time debt, which is like college debt, most people, that doesn't repeat throughout their lifetime. Like a lot of people always have a car loan, for example, or you have a mortgage for 30 years. But when it comes to something like college debt or even credit card debt that might have accumulated while you were in college, that might be a one-time life experience. So when you can get out from under that, it frees up your cash flow, but it also frees up space in your head for creativity and finding other ways to accelerate your income.
Yeah, yeah. No, going back to the expense cutting, I'm wondering when people hear that, they go, "Oh, I'm going to have to make sacrifices, huge sacrifices here." Is that true? And if so, how do we manage, I guess, the changes? Do we make sustainable changes?
Great question, Cloris. First of all, it's a mindset thing because the cuts that you might be making might not be that sacrificial. So some things that I've done with people is I've looked at some very basic bills, like your cell phone bill. And you might have the same cell phone plan for like 10 years and you don't even give it a second thought because maybe you have it set up that your payment comes right out of your checking account. So it's like set it and forget it. And we have a lot of those expenses in our life. So let's take a look at those expenses that we've set up as set it and forget it. And now we're not going to forget it. We're going to look at it and say, is there a more efficient way, a more cost-effective way without giving anything up? So I'll use myself. I had a cell phone plan, me and my husband, probably had it for like 14 years. Really didn't give it a whole lot of thought. And then we got this letter in the mail that they were no longer doing unlimited internet. So if you went over a certain limit, it was going to cost you more. And I thought, geez, I don't think we use that much. I'm not really going to worry about it. I kind of tucked that aside. Well, one month we went over and it was a huge difference in the bill. So I went to the company and I said, is there anything you can do for me? Oh, no, we can't help you. That was basically the answer. So I started shopping around. I went from $200 a month to $55 a month and got an unlimited plan, didn't give up a thing. So that was roughly $150 savings without changing my lifestyle. And I've found things like that for people, whether it's your cable plan or your cell phone or different things, or you look at different subscriptions and memberships that you pay for automatically and you might not even be using them. I had one family that we went through all of these things. I saved them $1,000 a month.
Huh.
Didn't change a thing. They
Yes,
didn't give up anything.
I love that. And all you did was basically review things, right? Take a look at your current
Make
situation.
them aware.
Yeah.
Get your head out of the sand and let's pay attention to where our money goes. It doesn't mean you're like, and some people, when I say that, their initial knee-jerk reaction, Cloris, is, oh, I'm going to have to be a miser. No, you're going to be a smart consumer. It's your money. You've worked for it. Let's pay attention to it.
Yeah, very well said. So, would you say when you work with your clients, you go through this process, analyzing their cash flow, seeing the opportunities?
Mhm.
What else? How else do you work with them to achieve that state of financial freedom?
Well, one other thing I look at is a side hustle.
Mm.
So sometimes people have skills and they don't realize how valuable those skills are. and that there are people that would pay for you to either teach them something or help them with something. So here's an example. I was working with this young woman who was recently laid off. And it was for her like a blessing in disguise because her job was making her physically sick. It was so stressful for her that she was literally getting sick over it. So in talking with her and really drilling down deep, we realized together that she was really an entrepreneur. And part of her problem was being employed by someone. So we started drilling down again. I said, well, what is it that you love to do? What was the part of your job that you could have done with your eyes closed and you absolutely just loved it? And it was organizing. So it was just taking a problem and sorting it out and bringing some structure and making things like systems, making things simple. I said, do you know how many self-employed people would just be like kissing your feet if you could, help them with that? Because we're so busy running our business and we know we need systems, but we don't take the time to create them, even though that would save us so much time. It's like so counterintuitive, it's ridiculous. So I had a bet with her. And I said, where do you live? She lived in Atlanta. I said, do you live near a downtown area? Oh yeah, right down the street. That's, our central downtown. I said, other, businesses, like small businesses. She goes, oh yeah, and she was describing them. I said, I want you to walk down, after we get off this call, I want you to take a walk down Main Street or whatever the name of the street was. And I want you to knock on a few doors, and this is what I want you to say to them. I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to say that you are doing a study and you were like basically taking a survey and you wanted to know, and I gave her 3 questions that had to do with, do you have systems in your business? Do you think systems in your business would save you time and money? And if the answer is yes, then, and they don't have systems, why don't you have them? So ask those 3 questions. And she did that. And then they came back with, well, why are you asking these questions? She said, well, I'm thinking of starting a business as a small business organizer. And these are my skills. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. But before I launched the business, I wanted to see if there was a need. And you might not need this, but maybe you know somebody who does. She got 3 clients in an afternoon.
Amazing.
And that was just doing that brain dump and saying, what is it you love to do? What is the part of your business? But the key is she took the action.
Right.
I could talk till I'm blue in the face, but she took the action.
That is true, because she could have made that a dream, right, for the future when I do X or Y, but she actually did it.
Right.
And then she had, I'm sure she's on her path to do what she loves and to make more money probably and be financially free. Yeah.
She is. She's making more money now than she did employed. She's happier. So she's also healthier. She was getting like all kinds of like irritable bowel, is that what it's called? Irritable bowel
IBS.
syndrome. She was getting all these different things, and that was all due to her stress. And so she was paying all this money to doctors because she was physically sick.
Yeah, I can see that. And that takes me then to the aspect that it's not just about financial stability or freedom. It really impacts your entire life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's why you called your book the Life and Money Playbook.
That's right.
So I would love for you to tell us more about it and what we can expect to find in it.
Well, Cloris, it's my 3-year project. It took me 3 years to write 19 pages. But what is in the book, there are a lot of tools. So it's very hands-on. There are some stories and examples. And it's mainly to get people into that mindset that anybody can create financial freedom. So I do talk about my grandmother and family members and the contrast between my grandmother and one of her children who had the same mindset versus her other children who didn't. And what I found very interesting was in my father's side of the family, he and his 2 brothers were in the same career. They were all self-employed. They had the same work. They probably earned about the same amount of money, but one made different choices. And because he made different choices, he followed his mother's path, he's going to be 90 years old this month, and he is still enjoying financial freedom. And I'm not talking about somebody who owns a private jet. I'm talking about, to me, financial freedom is when you can get out of bed in the morning, you can do the things that make you happy, and you do them without saying, oh, how much is it going to cost me? Whatever that is that you love to do, that you can just do it without having to worry about spending the money or worry about the cost. And he is able to do that. And my grandmother was able to do that. We're talking about, a very, as blue collar as she gets. She was a seamstress. My grandfather was a barber. But a lot of it was just decisions that they made and choices that they made that gave them financial freedom.
That's awesome. So where can we get the book, Terry? Because I know you want to give it as a gift to
I
us
definitely
viewers.
want to give it as a gift. So you can get it from my website. It is wealthcoachforwomen.net, and it will be /BIS
Okay,
for
perfect.
your
So
course.
wealthcoachforwomen.net/BIS for the Beyond Influence series. So definitely grab a copy of that book. I have a pleasure to have read it, and it is just full of value. So definitely check it out. So now, Terry, what's in store for you? What are your projects coming up next?
Well, one thing that I love to do is public speaking, and with coronavirus, being out in front of people has been impossible. But I've been fortunate that I've been invited to participate in some live events via the internet. So tomorrow I'm going to be part of something called the Mom Project, which is going to be a live recording, and then it will be posted. I'll have a copy of it posted on my website. And this is for women, mostly women with school-aged children, but it can be for anybody. And it's helping them realize financial freedom. And that we're going to be part of a panel, and there'll be several of us talking about different aspects of creating financial freedom. And one of the tools that we're recommending, and we're going to be coaching them on, is being their own advocate. So learning how to stand up for yourself, whether it's in a relationship, in a job, in a career, asking for a raise, if somebody's going through a divorce, knowing how to ask for the right settlement and get it.
So important to have that empowerment and that confidence, right? It all goes back to confidence.
It does. And at the end of the month, I'm going to be part of something called the South Shore Conference for Women, where again, I'll be part of a panel. And we're going to be talking about prepare, plan, and protect. So it's how to basically thinking of the pandemic, like how can we better prepare if something happens the next time? What kind of things do we need to protect our livelihood or our future? And, creating a plan around that.
Beautiful. So you said all of that is going to be on your website. So can you remind us the website, and then I'm guessing that's where we can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. My website is wealthcoach4women.net.
Okay, wonderful. We have a link underneath this video as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry, so we're running short of time, but there's one question I would love to ask you, and that is,
Sure.
as a business owner, you probably see challenges all the time. Now we're going through extremely challenging times. So what is your go-to strategy to keep going in spite of challenges?
Grit. Grit. I meditate. I pray. Those are two things that I do. Really trying to keep a positive mindset. That's probably, in these days, it has been very challenging. I mean, I was just as much a victim as anyone. It's heartbreaking for me to see a lot of business owners that I know that run restaurants that weren't able to be open. It's been very difficult. So I think that just trying to remain positive. And one thing that I also find for me is if I can find a way to help someone else, it kind of takes me out of my head.
Yeah.
So if I see somebody that's struggling, if I can offer them a little tidbit or help lift them up a little bit and give them some support, that helps. And I also formed a small little mastermind group with some other women in my building. So we meet once a month and just try to be a support system for each other.
I love that. So it's about support. It's about giving a positive attitude. being in touch with your own feelings and the grit, which of course is part of the whole deal. So this has been fantastic, Terry. I really appreciate your being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.